This episode's gonna be hard. The episode's gonna be hard. We're back again.
Back.
Another episode. I'm Kieron.
I'm Dionne.
And this is At Your Big Age.
At your big age.
You're not gonna be able to do this, are you?
No, I'm cool.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, let's take it on top.
Yeah. I think we start again. Right, boom. We're back. We're back. I don't even know what episode this is. What episode is this? We're back. Episode something. I'm Kieron. This is Dionne.
Hi.
This is
At your big age.
and we're gonna talk about. He's dying in the corner. He's dying in the corner.
Look, Kieran and I had a little bit of a revelation before we filmed this, so I'm a little bit triggered right now. So just bear with us as we get through this episode.
It's gonna be bloopers.
Yeah, bloopers galore.
This one's gonna be bloopers still.
Yeah.
We can't even talk about that. Nah, we can't even talk about that.
Do you know, I will talk about it one day.
Yeah, one day.
One day, I will actually talk about it.
One day we'll
But I
talk
think
about
I need to calm, because it's so fresh.
One day we'll talk about it.
Yeah, one day we'll talk about it. Put it this way, guys. It's funny how the universe brings certain people together, and
Facts.
the similar experiences, let's say.
Yes, facts.
I have no, like, I know my energy but might be a bit mad. It's nothing against Kieran.
I didn't do nothing.
I love Kieran. This is my guy.
What's he done?
Right? Kieran hasn't done anything. But we didn't realise that in some ways our lives kind of potentially cross paths.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. It's wild. London's small, boy.
London is small.
London is small. We do the intro again.
No, we're running it.
We're running it.
We're running it.
All right.
So,
Parenting. Hardest things about parenting.
okay,
From a male
and a female perspective.
From a dad and a mum and a dad perspective.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to say this straight off. Are you still going? Oh, I thought I heard him snigger. Yeah, I think for me, like having my first child late in comparison. So I had I've only got one daughter and I had her at 34. I think, you know, I kind of felt like I was I thought like, yeah, I've got this in the bag. Like I practically raised my younger brother and sister, you know, I've got X amount of godchildren, all this kind of stuff. So for me, it was just like, I knew parenting wasn't going to be easy. Does that make sense? But I felt like I was prepared. However, I don't think anyone really, like people say to you, like sleep when the baby sleeps.
Yeah.
I think exhaustion was the hardest thing. And I'm just going to put this out here now. I got to like the point where I was so tired, and I think she was about 2, or she's just under 2. And I kept saying to like my ex-husband, my mum, I'm like, I'm tired. But I think when you present well and you're saying something, people don't, they just weren't listening, right? And I remember this one morning I had to take her to nursery, and you know, when I'd flex I was trying to flex my shoulders, but my muscles were rock hard. Like they were literally grinding. It was that bad. And I was like, I can't move. So I said to my ex-husband, I was like, can you just please take her this morning? Because I'm so tired. And he was like, I can't, you know, I've got a meeting, all this stuff. And in that moment, what I decided to do was I was going to muster up the strength to actually get her to nursery. Then once I dropped her there, in my mind, I said, I'm going to crash this A5 so that
Someone's going to help.
well, no, I'm going to crash at A5 so I can go into hospital and I can sleep. That is where my mind was at, because I was that exhausted, and I decided that is what I was going to do. Like, I wasn't going to crash the car to kill myself, but I was going to crash it just so they would have to take me to hospital, and I would have this space to kind of sleep. Obviously, though, the universe had other plans. I got up out of that bed and I crumbled on the floor, and I literally couldn't move. And then I ended up having to take her, and then I spoke to my mum later on that day, and I was just, sobbing. I was like, I'm so tired, and I was breastfeeding at the time. And mum's like, okay, cool, I'm going to take her overnight. And the best thing my mum did, she didn't bring her back for like 3 days. And I was literally sitting by the window waiting for her to come back and all this stuff, because obviously, she'd never stayed with anybody else at that point. But that's the best thing my mum could have done. And I think for me, it was the exhaustion that really killed me. But luckily I didn't harm myself in the process.
It's tiring, man. It's tiring.
Yeah.
It's tiring. But see the irony. You got the rest and you were still waiting for your kid to come back.
Yeah.
It never stops. It never stops. But I think for me, as a man, like, I don't have any idea what I'm doing half the time. I've got 3 kids. Well, I've got 2 kids I actively see. I've got 1 that I don't. But I say this all the time. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I
give yourself more credit than Kieron.
But there's a caveat to it. I'll tell you what it is. I'm fantastic with babies. I'm fantastic with toddlers. I'm fantastic with kids up till the age they're at now. I've got my sons. One's 16, one's 12. I have no idea what I'm doing with them because I don't have any frame of reference to reference it to. My dad wasn't around from, I hit maybe 10 or 11. So the teaching, ride the bikes, all that kind of stuff I did with him, I can do.
Right.
Up until the point that I'm at now. I have no idea how to identify or communicate with a 16-year-old. I just about communicate with my 12-year-old son. Not just about communicate, we get on. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I am really doing on-the-job training. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
But isn't that what parenting is? It is on the job. It is. It's on the job. It's on the job training. Because the thing is, it's like, even when I think back to, like, I parent completely different to how my parents parented me. At 5, I was getting licks with the belt, with the slipper. I don't parent my daughter like that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you're learning on the job, but surely there are things that maybe you experienced as a child that you decided that you're just not going to do with your kids.
No, I never got licks.
No, I'm not saying licks, but you're lucky.
But they were old. My parents were old when they had me. My mum was
so you were like the baby.
I'm the baby. My mum was 40.
Oh, okay, so by that point, they're like,
someone said it the other day. Are you the whoops baby? I was the whoops baby. My mum was 40. My mum was born in 1939.
Okay.
My dad was born in 1935.
Right, okay.
So I really shouldn't have popped out. This is the 80s as well. Like, people weren't really having kids.
Like that, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So by the time I popped up, licks weren't a thing. Everyone's too tired to give licks now. It's like, it's a stern talking to, isn't it?
Yeah, my parents had plenty of energy. They were
like
25.
The look will do wonders instead of just getting licks. So it's not even so much things that I didn't do, or things that happened to me that I don't want to happen to them. Kind of, it's more. How do I put it? It's more like we didn't have endless conversations about stuff in my house.
Okay.
And this is part of the reason why I ended up kind of going off and doing certain things because there was no kind of that sit down, have a conversation. It's what I try and do with them, but the sit down, have a conversation thing, I never had that with my parents. So we're having conversations now with a 12 and a 16-year-old. I've got no frame of reference for these conversations at all. So they're asking me all kind of stuff, especially the young one. He's asking me he's like asking me about abortions and stuff the other day, like randomly over Nando's. Like, just out of the blue. I'm sitting there like, okay, I don't know how to, do you know what I mean? Because I've never had that kind of level of openness with my. I think I told my mum that my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. like it was. I don't even. It wasn't even an awkward conversation. It was like I said it, and it was like okay, and that was it. It wasn't like there was no dialogue.
There's no dialogue.
Yeah, there's not really. Like I went away, I come back. 2 years I was away for. I've come back again. There's no kind of. There's very even now we still don't really have
that dialogue.
We talk, but there's no that dialogue with my dad is non-existent. But so when I say I don't have a clue, I don't have a clue. And then the mad thing is. So we're saying about parenting. Parenting is one side of it. At some point, we're going to be grandparents.
Yeah, it's going to be a while for me still.
No, but I'm hoping it's a while for me. It needs to be a while for me because I'm just about, I say this all the time. People say, oh, you can't say that. On top of me saying I'm trying to still work it out. I'm just about a parent. Do you get what I mean? Like, I'm not even there yet.
Well, but Kieron, what's there?
Like, I'm not, I don't think I've reached that point where I can do the transition from parent to grandparent. I'm not. Do you get what I mean? Like, I'm not. You think of your grandparents. Your grandparents are like all seeing, all knowing.
The wise.
The wise.
Owl can see. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
I think you're downplaying yourself.
Thank you.
No, I'm not
Thank
there
you.
yet. I'm not there yet. I'm still.
This sounds a little bit like imposter syndrome.
Maybe.
Like parenting imposter syndrome.
Maybe.
Because to be fair, even hearing you talk now, the way you parent probably reminds me a lot of my dad. So same thing. My dad probably didn't take the whole I'm going to beat you angle.
Yeah.
It was more that I'm going to talk to you kind of friendship angle. Mm-hmm. But again, even probably hindsight, even me looking back on that though, I don't think that was necessarily the right approach. I know then that's probably bad me saying that now, but me looking back at this saying, you know what, in all fairness, my dad took the approach where he was more my friend, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So I used to be able to talk to my dad about everything. So those were the good angles of it. There was no surprises in my life to my dad. But with that being said, because he was that was the dynamic we had. In terms of authority, I don't want to say he didn't, because I would have respected my dad anyway, but because of our dynamic, he wouldn't put that level of authority down. So if I was going to go do something crazy, for example, me, for example, I wouldn't dare about doing any things that my dad did with me, my kids. I'll tell him, are you mad? You're not doing that. Whereas my dad, on the other hand, would be like, oh, well, if you're going to do that, let me make sure you're safe and come with you. And so that dynamic didn't necessarily, and over a longer term, you probably accidentally, I know you didn't mean to, but you probably accidentally encouraged me by supporting me to do it.
To do it.
Do you know what I mean? So, kind of dynamic.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've not really heard that dynamic before. So that's quite interesting.
I don't know. And then the other side of it is, you have no idea whether or not you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And that to me is wild. Like you're parenting. You have no no idea if you're raising a psychopath or
a sociopath.
If you've done some mad kind of damage with these kids and not even realized it. That's if you really that's scary. You know how scary that is.
It's very scary.
Like that's the heart, the not knowing whether or not you're
whether you're doing things the right way. Yeah.
What is the right way?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying to you. Like, yeah, what is the right way? I think for me, I was very conscious about raising a child that's very emotionally intelligent. You know, I give her the space to express herself, and I think as a result, like, she can turn around and say to me, "Mama, you're not listening to me, and I'm trying to explain to you, and you're not listening." So then I've got to catch myself and be like, "Okay, Raj, actually, to be fair, I'm not. So actually, let me give you that opportunity to kind of speak." But again, it's like as conscious. I like to call myself I'm a conscious parent, or I'm consciously parenting. But at the same time, you know, sometimes how she might react to things that I say, I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm doing things the right way, but then you're actually showing me that in moments that actually maybe I'm not. You know, so it is
daunting.
It is daunting. And I think, you know, raising children in this current climate, like, I'm almost grateful that my daughter is this young, because I think raising a teenager, you know, boys as well as girls in this,
Well, even that's
it's
hard.
hard.
That's hard.
It's hard.
That's hard.
It's hard.
So even that, I might look on that from a different aspect to you. So I'm probably a little bit more worried about my younger ones
Really?
more than my older ones. Yeah, because
Okay.
I kind of feel like the generations as we're going down, I feel like they're getting. It's not getting worse, but I feel like things are getting a bit more to the front, a bit more forward. If that makes
Forward,
any
yeah.
sense. So, prime example. If I just ran through the years, that's how it just goes and what's acceptable. I just remember when we were quite young, music videos. Everyone was still quite clothed, right?
Yeah.
You had the Aaliyah type body was in at the time. And then you had that little like Nelly kind of era, yin yang twins where, you know, they started to show a little cheek, one cheek, little, it got a little less. Move it to today.
It's just all out there.
It's all out there and everything, bro. When my daughter reaches up and she says she's 6 now, by the time she's 15, what does that look like on the screen? What are they wearing? Just nipple tassels.
Yeah.
And that's what
I mean, but we're there already though.
So I think I'm a little bit more worried for the younger ones more than even the older ones, and even my son. I don't mean to like I said, I'm very we're not homophobic whatsoever. Whoever does what they do, that's great. But I kind of do feel like there's an agenda. If that's where you go naturally and that's what you're naturally born that way and you gravitate towards that, it's understandable. I do feel like at the moment there's a larger agenda being pushed. So when your boy child, for example, like you said, boy-girl toilets. That sounds crazy to me, that a man can be in there with a female in the same toilet. That shouldn't be allowed. There's some things that shouldn't be allowed. If that's how you feel your partners, that's one thing. As a man being able... Did you hear that story the other day? Sorry, not to go on the tangent. But did you hear about that story about the trans woman that got locked up in the female jail and ended up impregnating like 3 of the prisoners?
Yeah, and that's the thing is that's been going on for a couple of years now in the States.
That happens still.
Yeah, it happens. But I think that the other flip side to that is that some of the women purposely want to get pregnant because they can move to a different part of the prison, which is a little bit more comfortable. You know what I mean? And you know, maybe they don't have children and whatever else. So
it's just a very worrying time. I just dread my son coming back and asking me, you know, if I will allow him to have the baby. Himself. When he can say, Dad, do you mind if they put an embryo in me and I have the baby, please? I want to carry the baby.
I mean, the way technology is going, I mean,
I'm not gonna be surprised.
that could be a possibility. I mean, I'm of a standpoint where I'm not even saying I've conceded, but what I would say is that, you know, I am just kind of a bit like, well, you know, my daughter went to a nursery where one of her friends had 2 mums. You know,
it's the norm.
It's the norm. So it's like, well, I'm not necessarily going to say to her that's wrong. You know, it just is what it is. And I think if this is the way that, and it is the way, it is the way, and it's been that way for a while. I mean, like I remember when I was younger, my mum had a friend who this is like back in the 80s, and she was a lesbian. So for me, same-sex relationships weren't a thing. I'd never seen, like, because obviously, you know, I feel like in the Caribbean community we do kind of we'll allow lesbians to a certain extent, won't we? Right? But then when it's 2 men, then there's everyone's nodding behind the cameras. But when it's problems, do you know what I mean? So they were actively welcomed in our household. They were a white couple. It was absolutely fine. So for me, from a young age, I saw that. And to me, I'm just like, oh, okay, well, you know, 2 women.
You know what, not to think you, but just to bring it back to what we're thinking. You know, just off the back of that, you know what is hard as well. You can't. It's almost like you're not in charge of teaching your children anything anymore. Do you get what I mean? Like you can normally like what is, and as long as it's not ignorance, you're not I'm not saying when people teach your kids to hate other groups and all this kind of stuff, because we know what is acceptable and what isn't. But you used to be able to impart whatever knowledge on your child and have them go off into the world and think it. Now it's almost like the state and everybody else has more kind of input in what your child is taught as opposed to what you are teaching your child. and I've seen it over the. Obviously, I've done it 3 times now. I've seen the stages almost, and it's mad because sometimes my youngest will come and he'll say something, and I'm like, yeah, but that's not how it goes. Yeah, but he's like, yeah, but they told me that in school. But I'm like,
Yeah, I hate that.
and I don't want to, because you have to listen to your teachers, right? I don't want to tell you where your teacher's talking rubbish because that's your teacher. So let me not give you that as a get out where you can't tell me nothing. My dad said you don't know what you're talking about. But like you do you know what I mean? So it's like finding that
balance.
Balance
yes.
where I want you to be equipped to deal with the world as it is now, not the world that we grew up in, because it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
So I need you to be equipped to go off into this new world, and whatever happens from here in the next 15, 20 years, you need to be able to navigate through all that. But in that, I still want you to have a little bit of a mindset that's kind of grounded in reality.
Yes.
And not just, well, you can't say that, and you can't say this, and you can't, and you, like it's, do you know what I mean? Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's trying to get that and then have them fit into a friendship group where maybe those parents don't have the same values as you.
Yeah.
And then it's mad,
It's
man.
it's hard. And you know what, on that note, right? Like my daughter's 5, so she literally started school in September, and she's gone to a Catholic school. I am not religious, but her father would class themselves Roman Catholic, but he didn't go to church, but whatever. And it was within 6 weeks, my child was indoctrinated. Jesus is the light of the world, Mum, if it wasn't for Jesus. And I'm like, you know, and because the thing is, up to that point, there were certain things that we did, but it's like everything that I've done up to this point was completely smashed away. And she was just like, Jesus is the light of the world, Mum. Like, and Jesus is okay. I'm gonna get cancer for this.
No, but you can. But this is the problem, right? You carried your child for 9 months, right? You should be able to say and again, as long as we're not saying that homosexuality is wrong or the extreme stuff. We're not saying radicalize your child.
Yeah.
But you should be, if in your house you do not practice a certain religion, that should be respected when your child leaves and goes to school.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I don't have an issue, because to be honest, I want her to learn about religion, but I just also want her to still have a critical thinking mindset of, and I know I'm expecting a lot from a 5-year-old, right? But I guess the example I was just trying to show you was that for everything I've done up to this point, it only took the school 6 weeks to completely change her mindset on, how we kind of viewed God and all this type of thing within 6 weeks. And I was just like, wow, this is
it's wild.
It is.
Wild. And even with the whole schooling thing as well. It's different with our parents. Our parents, a lot of them, like my mum and dad, didn't go to school here.
Right, okay.
So they had no idea about the education system and how biased it is and the rubbish they teach you here. And we know it. Yeah. We know that the majority of the stuff they teach you in the schools here, you're never going to need it. When was the last time you used pi?
No, the real idea of going to school is to make sure you could leave school and become a great employee.
Right.
Yes.
This world is run on employees.
Right.
Yeah.
So we know that. So now so a lot of us we're now trying to steer our kids and teach our kids certain things because we know we're trying to limit the amount of time you take in a lot of this nonsense. Right? As soon as we send them off out into the world or back into school, it's a constant battle. And it is that we've got enough stuff to try and deal with as parents, but that constant battle, it goes back to you being said, you're tired. It's tiring. Over the whole pandemic, to homeschooling, the kids coming home, he's showing me how they teach you how to do fraction. He's showing me a way. I'm saying, this is long. Why are they teaching you to do it like this? Oh, that's how the teachers. I said, me and his mum, let me show you how to. I'm gonna bust you on a thing, innit? Let me show you, innit? Show him. That's not how they taught me how to do it. Yeah, but you're getting the same answer. You're getting it quicker. Yeah, but that's not how they. I'm like, I'm telling you how to do something. Just do it. You're telling me about your teacher.
Yeah.
And this is the dynamic, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is always the dynamic. It's long.
I think that's going to end up being one of your biggest, like, kind of fears, is that, like you said, with everything you're teaching your child, they could go to whether it's a school, after school club, or somewhere you're going to send them for a short period of time and indoctrinate them with something necessarily you don't necessarily believe in or agree with.
Yeah.
And like you said, that could be anything from, like I said, step it away from something like, say, the homophobic, or you don't want to go on anyone, but it could be something like the devil worship. I don't want my son to come home one day, for example,
idol worship,
and just tell me, Dad, I worship Satan now. And I'm trying to have that honest conversation with him, but he really believes in it. He's really with this ideology, and this is one of my big fears. I have no control over that and don't know how to navigate that because I'm not of that.
Yeah.
So that would be another big fear for with the kids is them coming home and trying to bring something to you that you really don't
understand and agree. I think for me, I just always try to actively engage her in conversation and thought so that she does start to question things, like, because I remember, like, when I was in school, I've always gone to, like, Catholic schools, whatever, and we spoke and, you know, I remember when I would start asking questions and I'd be like, at Sunday school, like, but miss, how did Noah get all those animals on a boat? And they can't answer the question, right? And it's just like, oh, but, you know, God just made it that way. And then what happens over a period of time is that you just accept it. But then something happens in your head and you're like, when you get older, you're like, okay, this isn't really making sense. So for me, it's like I'm trying to install that
from now,
that critical thought in her head from now, like, this doesn't make sense. And oftentimes she will be like, Mum, this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, okay, and then we'll talk it out. And I think, you know, it's just, I guess maybe you just got to constantly engage your children in conversation about different things to keep their mind open and not be so indoctrinated by I can't believe we're in this part of the conversation, but indoctrinated by the state.
Yeah, but as well, and I think another thing that's mad hard, it just came to me as well, is everybody's got something to say about how you, like, you be in a park. This happened last week. I was in the park with my brethren and his daughter and his newborn, and she's fallen over. And there's other mums like fussing. He's like, no, she's fine. She's fine. She'll get up. Like, they're looking at him like this is how he is chosen to do. You didn't conceive this child, right? Mind your business. This is the problem. Because people are quick to intervene with nonsense like that, but when it's stuff that actually matters, they don't want to intervene. Yeah. And how you choose to, if the kid falls down, don't cry. You don't need to cry. What are you crying for? That's deemed as being like, oh, I mean, it's stifling the child's growth. Tell my child not to cry when they've fallen over. Respect it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I did a radio show on this one about when we kind of teach boys to not cry when they hurt themselves, but that is the starting. That's the seed of men not being conditioned to not cry, and not show their emotions. And then when they get into relationships and they can't articulate how they're feeling, and then the woman's like, I don't understand what's going on, and it causes problems. I did a whole show.
It's a grey area, but you see, you have to firm it. You have to firm it, man.
Why? Why? Why do you
have to firm it?
Why?
Because you're not hurt. A lot of time, kids will fall over. They're not really hurt.
Let me take over from you there, bro, as well. The reason why he has to firm it, I'm going to be real with you, and I hear that angle of you. Over a long period of time, if you do that toxically, then yes, it does kind of develop that it's, you know, men ain't supposed to cry. That does kind of develop that. However, if you give them like a little bit of emotional intelligence along the line as well,
yes,
you realise that he can cry. Yeah. But I tell you what they don't want is when he's a grown 25-year-old man, he walks around and he stubs his toe on the side and he starts crying.
Yeah, but he's not going to do that at 25.
Not
of course
like that,
he's not.
Wait, but if it hurt and this is how I express my emotions.
Who stubs their
Then why?
I don't even stub my toe and cry. I might cuss.
Hang on, that might be your personality. What if he cries when he stubs his toe?
He ain't gonna stub his
No,
toe,
but
so big man and
let me
cry.
tell you
Unless,
that.
unless he
Wait,
would chop up his toe.
And we've just hit the nail on the head. And that's the reason why he needs to learn. Because as he gets older, the kind of woman your woman is not going to respect you if that's the kind of mannerisms you grow with. Whether it's you hit your toe, or you drop that thing on your hand, or you burnt yourself on the stove very quickly and now you're having to cry.
Why
You
you
just
get me?
turned around and said, I wouldn't cry.
You're gonna have a rebuttal for that.
So that's the reason why we teach these boys these things when they're a bit younger. Because it's indoctrinated them not to cry for small things. You'd never see a man, you never hear a
but the
man
thing
crying because
is-
of death. And you hear other men tell him, stop crying, your mum just died, you're not supposed to cry. You never hear men say that. Never.
Okay, but what happens, you see, between the ages of 0 and 6 years old, the child's brain is in it's in like in theta mode. So between those two ages, this is where your child is a sponge and they're absorbing everything that's been in front of them. They absorb it. And psychologists can say, show me a child at 6 and I can show you who they are at 21, 25, right? Because of the conditioning they've had. So sometimes the things that we say to our children, we might not think it's a big deal. So you might be telling your 2-3-year-old boy or 5, whatever, if or never, he genuinely might be hurt, but you've now told him you can't cry, that this isn't okay. So he's now internalizing that. And remember, this isn't even a conscious thing. This is something that's going on in the subconscious mind. Okay, when I'm hurt, I am not allowed to express my feelings. So then what then happens is he will then subconsciously carry that through. And yeah, he's not going to stub his toe and cry, but there's going to be other areas of his life where he's going to be like, well, and again, it's not conscious, it's subconscious. He's in his subconscious mind, he's saying, well, I might have had a girlfriend and I was in love with her and we've broken up and I'm feeling this emotion, but you know what? I've got to push it down. Right? How can I now deal with this emotion? What's going to give me that escapism? And then we have those other behaviors. So whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, whether it be there's this, and I'm never going to sit here and say to people, this is how you should parent your child. But I do feel like this is why it's very important to have the information so then you can make conscious decisions on how you parent, because the things that we, kind of say to our kids and do in this key period of time will have effect on them in their later in their adulthood.
I agree.
I'm not saying don't comfort your kid if your kid falls. I'm just saying there's that. No, but because there's that. We're all parents here. We know there's that little 2-second window where they fall, they look at you, you look at them.
Look at them, yeah.
I know now. This is crucial, right? Hold on. If I now go, you're looking at me. I look like that meme with Puffy and the other guy. We're now looking at each other. They've fallen. Hand slap. The room goes quiet. They look up. I look at them. If I now, that kid's gonna cry.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? This is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So if I say, bro, dude, you're all right in it. Like, they think about it a couple of seconds. I'm all right. I get up. That's the moment. I'm not saying fall off from height, drop, head bust, blood.
Get up.
Firm it. You're good. Firm it, man. Firm it. You're good. I'm just saying sometimes you got to be able, you need to be able to have the freedom to kind of raise your kid how you see fit.
Yeah.
And I think the hard part now is that we don't have that freedom. Like we can't. I was never an advocate of smacking your child, but that's out. You can't do that now.
I mean, you can. People
Yeah,
are
you
still
can,
people
but
still
if
smacking
you
their kids.
smack your neighbour and your neighbour his, smack your kid and your neighbour his, the boy them's coming to
Yeah,
your
but
house.
for people, kids are still getting smacked.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I
But
mean?
it's like you kind of that kind of freedom to have to not do as you please, but to do what you deem right is very quickly becoming very
Smaller and smaller,
So then
yeah.
how do you maneuver in that now little tiny space where you can't do nothing? You can't don't speak to your child like that. don't look at you, don't breastfeed in public, don't do this, don't do like what? So that all of that. I mean, I couldn't even imagine being a first-time parent now.
It's all right.
Huh? What right now? Can you imagine right now with everything how the world is right now?
Oh, I mean, like with the gas prices going up
Just
and all that
everything.
stuff.
Just being a first-time parent right now. You must do this. You can't do that. You must breastfeed. You shouldn't breastfeed in public. You must do this. Don't do that.
To be fair, since I've been a parent, it's been them rules. So I think I've kind of grown in it with those rules, to be fair.
Mad. Where's the freedom? Should be just happiness, joy. Disney.
I don't know. I think when it comes to parenting, I've never felt restricted in what I always breastfed in public. Like I dared anybody to come and tell me.
Not to feed.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not just gonna literally whip my whole boob out here. But do you know what I mean? Like I found ways to breastfeed her without ever exposing my breast. I do feel like maybe there are some people that just want to push the boundaries because they can to make a point. They might flip out the whole thing. Do your thing. It's absolutely fine. But me personally, I just found ways of being able to breastfeed my daughter in public without making a scene about it, you know. But yeah, I think I've genuinely found my parenting journey to be the one I wanted it to be. Don't get me wrong, there were people, I remember as a baby, everyone saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it my way. But I think, again, me being an older parent, I'm not really going to take any talk.
Would you do anything different now if you went again?
No.
You do exactly the same.
I'll do
Parenting
exactly.
style wouldn't change at all.
Parenting style wouldn't change at all. No.
No?
Yeah. No. I don't think I'll change anything at all, to be honest. No. Nothing at all.
No. Mine just constantly evolves.
Well, she's only 5 though, so do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure once she gets, because she's actually 5 going on 25, so she's going to give me a warm time. She already gives me a warm time. Yeah. So I already know, like, she's already in that teenager stroppy thing. And I'm like, you're 5. Like, why are we here? Why are we here already? You know? Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard.
Oh, 37 minutes. Okay, we've got to wrap this up.
Go on, wrap it. This is you now. Wrap it up.
I wrapped up the last
No,
one.
you didn't. No, let's not do this.
Didn't I wrap up the last one?
Let's not do this. You can't remember. Let's not do this.
I did, because you lot gave me the 10 out of 10 ending.
Yeah, but that's because that was by default. You didn't mean to wrap it up. You just wrapped. That was
I was wrapping it up.
That was, you just said that and we couldn't top it. That you weren't supposed to wrap it up, but you wrapped it up.
Kieron?
Just to keep it real.
Okay, well, you give us a 10 out of 10 ending.
I can't. You're putting pressure on me now. I've got performance anxiety. Failure to launch.
Someone give him a blue pill.
See, yeah, I don't know. I mean, in closing, I think it's never going to be easy, is it? Really, parenting. It's never going to. No. You never. It's probably not supposed to be.
No, I don't think
it's supposed to be difficult.
I
think it's supposed to be difficult.
It's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be a difficult journey. It's supposed to be a learning curve for you and your child. But you just do the best that you can, and that's within your your kind of remit. I think one thing I would say is what I've learned about children is children will more remember experiences than they will the things that you give them. That's one thing I've definitely learned. So now I purposely try and create experiences for her as opposed to
just giving her
things, because you see the things in the 10 toy boxes piling up that you're not playing with. Yeah. But then you're asking me for more toys.
Asking me more things. No. I hear that.
No more things. Let's do life. Let's do experiences.
Yeah.
On the topic of parenting, obviously before I came to video, I've got episodes. There's one called Spare the Rod, Spoil the Child, where I speak to a child psychologist or psychotherapist, and she has a book within the same title that kind of talks about the history of why we physically discipline our children. Really interesting one. I've got an episode on conscious parenting. So if you just scroll back through the archives on Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, whatever, if you're interested in parenting as a topic, I have loads. So just go and have a look and
Boom,
hit
bam.
me up.
Boom, bam. You say bye.
Okay. Right. So I was waiting for you to say bye. Okay, so thank you for tuning in to another episode of At Your Big Age. Please like, subscribe, share this episode with anyone you think would be interested. And what is it? It's a
Wrap.
It's a
Done.
wrap. Done.
Done. Finito.
Bye.